Keanu Reeves is a quiet and kind man. He's also a very famous actor, but he doesn't like showing off. He doesn't want a lot of attention. He just wants to do what's right and treat people kindly. One day, Keanu was getting ready to fly on an airplane. It wasn't just a short flight. He was going all the way to another country, to a city called Geneva. He was going there to help people talk about how everyone in the world should get equal access to the internet. This was very important, but it wasn't a fancy event with cameras or reporters. It was serious and quiet work. Keanu walked into the airport and onto the airplane, all by himself. He wore a long, dark coat, black clothes, and boots. His hair was tied back. He didn't bring any fancy suitcases, just a simple canvas bag over his shoulder. It was raining outside, and little drops of water were still on his coat. As he stepped into the airplane, a lady working there said, "Welcome aboard," without even looking at him. But when the next man came in, a tall man with blonde hair and a shiny suit, she smiled big and said, "Jonathan Pierce, so nice to have you back." Keanu didn't say anything. He was used to people not recognizing him. He didn't mind. He just walked to his seat quietly. His seat was 1A. That's the very first seat in the first-class section, the fancy part of the plane where tickets cost a lot of money. He put his bag away carefully, sat down in the soft leather seat, and looked around. The lights in first class were warm and golden. They were made to feel cozy and look fancy. He took a small letter out of his coat. It was written by hand with blue ink. He placed it into the little seat pocket in front of him, leaned back and closed his eyes. This flight wasn't just about going somewhere. It felt like something important was about to happen. Soon, more people came into first class. Many wore suits. They laughed and chatted. Some were handed glasses of sparkly drinks like champagne. A flight attendant offered Keanu a glass too, but took it away quickly when he didn't grab it right away. She didn't say his name. She didn't even ask. That didn't bother Keanu. He didn't need people to know who he was. But he noticed something. Only the rich-looking people in suits were greeted nicely and by name. Everyone else was just sir or guest. That didn't feel right. He wasn't on this flight for fun. He wasn't going to make a movie. He was going to help fix unfair things in the world. But right here on this plane, he saw that something unfair was already happening. He looked at the little screen near his seat. It should have said his name, but it just said, "Guest." That was strange because Keanu had been flying with this airline for over 10 years. He had taken hundreds of flights, always politely. He had a special account that showed he was one of their best passengers. But still, the screen didn't know his name. Then a young man who worked on the plane walked past and greeted others. "Good evening, Victor Langston. Jonathan Pierce. Champagne for takeoff." He knew all their names like he had a list in his head. But when he passed Keanu, he didn't say anything. Soon, a blonde flight attendant came over. Her name tag said, "Becky." She smiled, but the smile didn't look real. She asked, "Hi there, we'll begin meal service soon. You didn't choose a meal online, right?" Keanu replied gently, "I did. I picked the vegan meal 5 days ago. I got a message confirming it too." Becky blinked but didn't seem to care. "Oh, maybe the system didn't update," she said. She turned and left without saying more. Keanu sat still. He didn't feel upset. He was calm. But inside, he knew something wasn't right. The lights dimmed as the plane got ready to take off. He could hear people behind him laughing and clinking their glasses. A tray went past with delicious-smelling food. Caviar, warm bread, steak with fancy sauces. The people in suits were getting a royal meal. But Keanu? He got nothing. No food. Not even a look. He leaned back. This wasn't about a forgotten meal. It wasn't even about his name missing from the screen. It was about something bigger. This airplane, with its quiet rules and polite smiles, was showing him how people are treated differently. People who dress fancy or look rich were treated like kings. People who looked quiet or different, like him, were ignored. He pulled out a small, special device from his coat. It looked like a credit card, but it could take notes and record things. He tapped on it. "Start recording. Begin observation." The flight hadn't even gone far, but Keanu had already decided something. He was going to remember this moment. He wasn't going to get mad. He was going to use this experience to make something better. About 37 minutes after the flight took off, Becky came back. She moved quickly, like someone who had done the same job every day. She stood in front of Keanu again. "I'm sorry, sir," she said flatly. "We ran out of the vegan meal. There was a catering issue. All we have left is a cold chicken sandwich and water." She didn't really say sorry. Her voice didn't sound like she cared. She didn't try to fix the problem. She didn't offer anything else. She just handed over the tray and walked away. Keanu looked at the tray. The sandwich looked dry and sad. The bread was white and soft. The lettuce was old. The water was warm and barely filled the cup. There were no silver forks or spoons. It looked like something you'd get in a school cafeteria, not in the fancy part of an airplane. He didn't eat it. Not because he was angry. Not because he was picky. But because he needed to remember it. This exact moment. He had confirmed his meal days ago. He had the email. He had the text message. And still, this was what he got. Not a meal problem, but a people problem. The people working on the flight had decided, without even realizing it, that Keanu didn't belong in seat 1A. They thought he was just a quiet man with a canvas bag. They didn't see his kindness. They didn't see his years of loyalty. They didn't see the man trying to help change the world. Behind him, the rich men were enjoying wine and steak. Their plates were shiny. Their laughter was full. Their experience was perfect. But Keanu? He had a dry sandwich in silence. He opened his small device again. The screen glowed softly. He typed, "Trigger, bias event. Cabin section, 1A. Time, verified." He wasn't going to yell. He wasn't going to post angry things on the internet. He was going to do something better. Something quiet. Something smart. He was going to make sure that what happened to him wouldn't happen to others. That's how Keanu Reeves works. He doesn't need people to bow to him. He doesn't need gold plates or shiny names. He just wants people to be treated fairly. That night, in the front row of a quiet plane, something important began. Not with a loud voice, but with a cold sandwich, a missing name, and a man who knew how to change the world, one quiet moment at a time. And that's the story of how someone's small mistake helped Keanu see something big. Keanu sat quietly in his big, soft airplane seat. The airplane was flying very high in the sky, going far across the ocean. The lights in the plane were golden and warm. Everything looked fancy. This part of the plane was called first class. It was where people who paid a lot of money sat. The seats were wide, and the food was usually yummy. But something strange had happened. A flight attendant named Becky had come by earlier. She had a big smile and a nice voice, like honey. She gave dinner to everyone around Keanu, steak, truffle butter, and fancy drinks. But when she got to Keanu, she just put a cold sandwich on his tray and walked away. She didn't say anything else. She didn't even look at him. Keanu didn't get angry. He didn't yell. Instead, he just watched quietly. He had seen things like this before. It wasn't loud or mean, but it still hurt. It was like people were pretending not to see him. Like he didn't belong. Like he didn't matter. Behind him, 3 men in suits were laughing and clinking glasses of fancy wine. They were having fun. Becky kept coming to their seats, calling them by their names. Jonathan Pierce, Victor Langston, Graham Sinclair. She poured their drinks carefully and smiled at them like they were important. But she never came back to check on Keanu. She never asked, "Is everything okay?" She didn't offer him a better meal. She just acted like he wasn't there. Keanu didn't say anything. Instead, he picked up a small device that looked like an e-reader. He touched the screen. It glowed softly. The words popped up. Trigger bias event logged. Cabin section 1A. Time saved. That meant something unfair had happened, and Keanu had recorded it. This wasn't just a cold sandwich. It was something bigger. Keanu wasn't just a quiet man in black clothes. He was also a very smart person who worked with special technology. His device could track how people were treated. It could see who was smiled at, who got more attention, and who was left out. He pressed another button. A message flew through the air to a woman named Maya, who was far away in a tall office building in New York. Maya worked with Keanu. She was very smart and fast. Her computer lit up as soon as she got the message. The screen said, Flight 917, Behavior Alert. That meant something was wrong, and Maya was going to help fix it. Meanwhile, back on the airplane, Becky still didn't look at Keanu. She smiled at Jonathan Pierce and asked if he wanted more dessert. She poured coffee and gently touched his wrist while laughing. Her voice was sweet and soft. Keanu watched. He didn't feel angry. He felt something colder, something calm and serious. He was seeing a pattern. He remembered other times like this. Like in Tokyo, at a fancy party, when someone thought he was just the translator. Or in Berlin, when people asked, "Who is your helper?" Even though it was his name on all the smart inventions. They didn't hate him. They just didn't see him. It was like he was invisible to them. He tapped his fingers quietly on the armrest. 3 taps, then paused. Over and over. It wasn't just a habit. It was a countdown. In her New York office, Maya had already started checking things. Her glasses reflected the bright computer screen. She saw pictures of the plane, read reports, and watched videos. Maya didn't need someone to tell her what to do. She saw what was happening and started the investigation. Back on the plane, Keanu touched his screen again. A picture of Becky popped up, with her name, Rebecca Whitmore, cabin crew leader. For similar complaints in the past. No punishment. He kept watching the cabin. More red dots started to appear on the screen. It showed who Becky spent time with. The red dots were all around the men behind him. But there were no red dots near Keanu. It meant she barely came near him. He nodded slowly. He didn't need dessert. He already had proof. Proof that showed she wasn't being fair. She was treating some people like kings and ignoring others. He sent more information to Maya. She was now seeing a map of the airplane. It showed where everyone sat and who was being treated nicely. Maya was smart. She could read the numbers and see the truth. Keanu closed his screen and leaned back. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The facts were loud enough. Everyone else in first class thought everything was perfect. They sipped their drinks and smiled, not knowing anything strange was happening. But Keanu knew. And Maya knew. And the little device in his lap knew. Becky walked by again, holding a tray of chocolate mousse. "You really must try the mousse, Victor Langston," she said with a giggle. Keanu didn't turn his head. He didn't need to. Everything was being recorded. Every word, every smile, every unfair choice. They thought he was just a quiet man in a nice seat. They thought he wouldn't speak up. They didn't know he was someone who helped build tools to fight unfairness. Long before Becky worked on airplanes, Keanu had been building ways to catch moments just like this. He reached into his coat pocket and took out a small notebook. It was old and soft, with a leather cover. He opened to the last page and wrote just one line in neat handwriting. "She saw me as no one. Let's see if the system agrees." Then he closed the notebook gently, slid the tray with a cold sandwich to the side, and folded his hands. Still, he didn't say anything. No yelling. No complaints. Only watching. Waiting. Recording. Far away in New York, Maya saw the new updates. The data told a clear story. Becky had treated some people like they were stars. And she had ignored Keanu like he wasn't even there. The plane was quiet now. The lights were dim. The engines hummed softly. Everything looked peaceful. But something important was happening. Quiet and invisible to most. A small sandwich had started something big. Keanu had used no words. But his silence had power. And in that moment, the coldest thing in the sky wasn't the sandwich. It was the truth. It was the quiet truth, shining brighter than any golden light in that fancy cabin, that said, "I saw what you did. And now the world will too." Maya Grant was sitting at her computer, typing away in her office. Everything was quiet. Then, without a sound, a little message popped up on her screen. It was from a secret system that almost nobody at her company, Morgan Tech, even knew about. The message said, "Fel 91 scene code gray, data stream active." Maya didn't say a word. She didn't even blink. Her fingers stopped typing for a moment, then slowly started again as she closed the window she was working on. She opened a secret computer screen that only a few people knew about. This special system was made by Maya and her friend Keanu. Yes, that Keanu. He was very smart and cared a lot about fairness. This system was only used when something wasn't just a little unfair, it was really wrong. And when Keanu sent a signal, it didn't mean, check this out. It meant, let's fix this now. Maya tied her curly hair into a tight bun and pushed her glasses up her nose. Then, she turned on the Morgan Tech Sentinel dashboard. It was a special computer tool she helped build. It could watch what was happening on airplanes, using video from inside the cabin and listening to people's voices. It could even figure out if someone was being left out or treated unfairly, just from how they were spoken to. The screen started showing video from a flight called L-91. It was a fancy airplane with first-class seats. The camera showed seat 1A. Sitting there was Keanu Reeves. A woman named Becky Whitmore, one of the flight crew, was talking to him. The computer showed that the talk lasted only 14.7 seconds. It also said Becky's voice was cold and not very friendly. Her body didn't turn toward Keanu much. She seemed like she didn't really care. Maya's face got serious. She typed another command. A new screen popped up. It was a map of the first-class cabin showing how the crew was acting with different passengers. There were warm orange rings around a few seats. 1C, 1D, and 2A. That meant those passengers were getting a lot of attention. The crew smiled at them, spoke nicely, and even stayed near them for longer. But not for Keanu. Not for seat 1A. The computer was checking Becky's voice, measuring how nice or warm she sounded when she talked to each person. Then came the numbers. Becky's score for favoritism was 88.1%. That meant she was being super nice to people who looked a certain way, white men in fancy suits. But she ignored other people. Her neglect index for non-white passengers was 74.3%. Maya leaned back in her chair. She had seen this before. Some flight workers smiled and acted nice, but they didn't treat everyone the same. They didn't yell or say mean things, but they left people out quietly, like they weren't important. Maya searched the crew log. Becky had worked there since 2018. She had 4 complaints against her. People said she ignored them or didn't talk to them at all. But nothing ever happened. No one could prove it, so Becky was never in trouble. But this time, Becky picked the wrong passenger to ignore. Keanu didn't just complain. He had proof. Maya opened the sound recording from the airplane. She listened to a 12-second clip. Becky, we only have sandwiches left. Keanu, I pre-ordered 5 days ago. Becky, sometimes the system misses it. Happens all the time. Becky sounded like she didn't care at all. Maya asked the system to compare Becky's voice when she spoke to a man named Jonathan Pierce. Becky had been 39% warmer and talked 64% longer with him. Maya created a report. She called it Straightest Air L91, Targeted Service Disparity. That meant someone was not getting treated fairly on the flight. She added all the data, behavior maps, voice tones, timestamps, and camera clips. At the end of the file, she wrote, Pattern identified. Behavioral profiling confirmed. Consent granted by Diamond Tier passenger. Recommend full audit on senior cabin crew behavior logs past 12 months. Then she sent the report to the top bosses, the legal team and the airline's big boss, Mr. Gregory Holt. She sipped her cold tea and watched Becky on the screen. Becky had no idea she was now part of a case. Maya wasn't just collecting data. She was making silence a kind of mistake. Something you couldn't hide behind anymore. Becky walked through the airplane aisle like a dancer. She moved perfectly and smiled just enough. To most people, it looked like she was doing a good job. But Maya could see through that smile. Maya typed one more word into the report, selective. That meant Becky was choosing who to be nice to. And that wasn't fair. Maya checked more of Becky's history. She looked at other flights from the past 2 years. One time, in March 2023, a woman pressed her call button 3 times. She was an Indian-American businesswoman. No one came to help. Becky was the lead crew that day. Another time, In September 2022, 2 Asian passengers were served last, even though they had come on board early. Becky wrote in the report, "Language confusion." But both passengers spoke perfect English. And in February 2022, a black professor didn't get her vegan meal. Becky said it was a catering mistake. It was the same excuse she used with Keanu. Each time, the words changed, but Becky's actions stayed the same. Maya looked at how the HR team handled these complaints. All the reports said things like, "not enough data," or "no clear violation." Nobody wanted to say Becky was doing something wrong. Maya highlighted all those phrases and added a new tag: modern discrimination, subtle pattern, high impact. The computer beeped again. It had found something new. It showed a chart comparing Becky's voice and body language when she talked to Keanu and when she talked to Jonathan Pierce. The difference was big. 72.5%. With Keanu, there was no warmth, her body didn't face him, and she didn't use his name. The system couldn't lie. Becky wasn't rude. She was quietly unfair. And tonight, she was finally caught. Maya created a big report called Flight 917 Audit Packet Version 1.0. She added everything: videos, voice clips, maps, and logs. She even wrote something personal at the bottom. "This is what it looks like when prejudice wears a uniform and hides behind a wine list." She may never say the wrong word, but her silence says everything. Then she sent the file to Stratus Air's Internal Affairs and the CEO. A message popped up: report submitted. Behavioral investigation now in motion. Maya looked at the live video feed one last time. Becky was smiling again. She laughed at something Jonathan Pierce said. She had no idea that the way she smiled, the way she ignored others, was now Exhibit A in a big case. In Seat 1A, Keanu didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The truth was already spoken. Becky walked back to the front of the plane. Her hands were empty. No food. No drinks. Just that same tight smile. She stopped by Keanu's seat and said, "I just wanted to check if you needed anything else." Her voice sounded like it had been practiced 1,000 times. Keanu looked up and said quietly, "I noticed you addressed Jonathan Pierce, Victor Langston, and Graham Sinclair by name, but not me." Becky blinked. "Oh, well, I didn't catch your name when you boarded." "You never asked," Keanu said. She paused, then tried to laugh a little. "Well, some guests don't seem to want attention. And besides, some guests just expect too much." That was it. That was the moment. Keanu didn't yell. He didn't get angry. He just leaned back and said 4 soft words. "You've done enough already." Becky's face froze. She opened her mouth to say something, but nothing came out. Keanu turned to the window. His tablet buzzed. Maya had already grabbed the audio clip of Becky's words. "Some guests just expect too much." The system flagged it as disrespectful and biased with a 96.4% confidence score. That one sentence was all it took. Keanu tapped the screen. Confirm escalation. Now everything Becky said and did would be part of a big investigation. And she didn't even know it. She thought she was in charge. She thought she was the one choosing who deserved service and who didn't. But Keanu didn't need to fight. He used data. And the same system Becky used to hide behind? It was now turning around to shine a light on her. The cabin looked perfect. Golden lights. Sparkling drinks. Fancy chairs. But underneath all that beauty, something was happening. A quiet storm. Becky kept going like nothing happened. She smiled, offered desserts, and fluffed pillows. But she never looked at Seat 1A again. In the back kitchen, another crew member named Liam was drying his hands when Becky walked in. "You see the guy in 1A," she said. "Didn't even say thank you. I swear, some people just expect the red carpet." Liam didn't answer. He never liked Becky's comments. But his tablet buzzed. An alert. Something from the ethics team. It was locked, only for high-level review. Becky didn't notice. She was fixing her hair and checking her lipstick in the shiny microwave. Meanwhile, Keanu sat quietly, tablet on his lap. It looked like a regular device, but inside it was a gateway to the Morgan Sentinel network. A secret tool he helped build to catch exactly this kind of unfair behavior. He tapped again. A message popped up. Level 3 clearance granted. Cabin cam sync active. The flight security cameras were now streaming live to a private server. The world above the clouds had just changed. And Becky had no idea. Keanu had made a special plan a long time ago with the rule-following team at Stratus Air. Back then, it was just an idea to help watch over how guests were treated, kind of like a secret helper for fairness. Nobody thought it would be needed the way it was now. But today, every tiny part of the plane's camera videos was being looked at by a very smart computer made by Morgan Tech. This computer wasn't like a regular one. It could tell how people were feeling by their body movements, how their voices sounded, and even who got looked at with kind eyes and who didn't. It could tell if someone was being kind or cold. Keanu watched the videos on his screen. He saw a flight attendant named Becky kneel next to a rich man, Victor Langston. She was smiling at him, giving him wine carefully and gently. Her voice was soft and sweet, and the computer showed happy signs on her face. She looked like she was being really nice. Then, the video changed. It showed how Becky had acted earlier when she talked to Keanu in seat 1A. Her face looked flat, not happy. Her voice was short and unfriendly. She didn't stay long. The computer measured it. Only 14.7 seconds. She didn't even look him in the eyes. The computer showed all this side by side. It was easy to see the difference. Keanu didn't need to argue with anyone. He had proof. Data doesn't get scared or lie. It just tells the truth. Keanu tapped his screen to save everything in the company's record room. Then he added a note with his voice, saying, "Some guests just expect too much." He added a label too, about unfair treatment and people hiding their real feelings while wearing their uniforms. Far away in New York, a smart helper named Maya was already writing up a report about what happened. But it wasn't just going to be about Becky anymore. The videos showed another worker, Liam, who looked away when Becky was being rude to Keanu. Another crew member even skipped Keanu's seat when giving out drinks. They didn't say anything, didn't help. So they were part of the problem too. Because when a team lets silence become the normal thing, when they choose to stay quiet instead of fixing wrong things, that's when everything starts to go bad. Keanu looked out the window. Down below, little city lights twinkled like stars. But up here in the sky, something big had already started. There were no alarms, no shouting. Just one man in black, holding the quiet truth in his hands and using a system that no one saw coming. The captain's voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing in Geneva soon. The weather is calm and nice. Please return to your seats." That word, calm, floated through the plane, making it feel like just another perfect flight. Just another luxury trip with Stratus Air. Becky moved like she always did, picking up glasses, fixing seat belts, checking her hair in the oven's reflection. For her, this flight was normal. Nothing exciting. She was already thinking about the martini she'd ordered at the hotel. She didn't look back at seat 1A. Not even once. Keanu sat still with his coat over his lap. His face didn't show any feelings. His screen was off and tucked away. But inside, a big storm had already begun. His smartwatch buzzed. A message from Maya popped up. Audit started. Full check approved. Ethics team waiting in Geneva. Flight 917 crew marked. Keanu gently touched his watch. He didn't reply. He didn't have to. The system was already wide awake. The plane touched down with a soft bump. Becky held onto a seat in front of her, still not knowing what was happening. The rich people nearby talked about their meetings and coffee. They were ready to jump back into their busy lives. The plane rolled to a special gate just for VIPs. Becky was the first to undo her seatbelt in the galley. She wanted to escape into her regular routine. But she didn't see the three serious people waiting outside the door. They wore black suits and stood very still. Their faces were serious. One held a glowing tablet. Another had a leather folder with a shiny seal. The last one wore a red badge that said, "Internal Audit." When the doors opened, Keanu stood up slowly. No rush. No anger. He fixed his coat, grabbed his bag, and walked calmly down the aisle. His boots didn't make a sound on the soft carpet. As he reached the front, one of the black-suited people stepped forward. "Mr. Reeves," he said. "We're sorry." Keanu didn't stop. He walked past them and said quietly, "No need to apologize. This was going to happen." Behind him, the crew started gathering their things. Becky smiled a little as she stepped into the galley, but her smile froze when the tablet was held up to her. On the screen were red words. "Flight 917 crew. Go to emergency interview room 2. Mandatory." Her hand squeezed the cart. Liam, now pale, didn't meet her eyes. No one said a word. The flight had landed. But for Becky, this was only the beginning of her fall. The hallway outside the plane was clean and shiny, with glass walls and tiled floors. At the end was a door that usually opened for presidents and big leaders. Today it was being used for something very different. Keanu walked through it slowly. He didn't look back. He didn't have to. The system had already done the talking. 2 important people waited at the entrance. One was Nathaniel Price, the boss of Stratus Air in Europe. The other was a legal expert from the ethics team. Both stood straighter when they saw him. Nathaniel spoke first. "Mr. Reeves, we are truly sorry." Keanu walked past him without stopping. "You know what this is really about." Nathaniel didn't say anything. He just nodded and followed. Back at the plane, the crew walked down the back stairs, chatting and stretching like it was just a normal day, until they saw the black suits. Becky squinted at them. She still held her clipboard. Her steps slowed. One officer stepped up. "Rebecca and Whitmore?" "Yes," she answered. He turned the screen to her. It showed her photo and ID and flashing red words. "Mandatory ethics interview. Room 2. High priority." Becky froze. "What's this about?" she asked. The officer said, "Passenger 1A." She blinked. That number meant nothing to her. Just a seat. Just another face. "Wait, who was in 1A?" she asked. There was a pause. Then the officer said the name. Keanu Gregory Reeves. The clipboard fell from her hand. Her heart dropped. Not because he was a movie star. She still hadn't realized that. But because she remembered every moment she didn't care. Every moment she didn't even try to be nice. She had never even asked his name. Now, it was the only name anyone cared about. She was taken down a hallway. No one shouted. No one grabbed her. But every camera was watching. It wasn't about yelling. It was about the truth finally showing up. And it was too late to undo. In the Geneva terminal, everything was quiet but busy. Behind the frosted glass, important people moved quickly. They all knew what had happened. And none of them were ready for what came next. Keanu walked out of the private hallway alone. His black coat swayed a little in the morning wind. The sun made a gold light behind him. He didn't look like someone from a movie. He looked like someone from a story people would never forget. A black car waited for him. 2 Stratus Air bosses stood nearby. One was the head of the company, Gregory Holt. As Keanu got close, Edmund stepped up. "Mr. Reeves, please allow us to say." Keanu held up his hand. "Not mad. Just done." "No need to apologize," he said, calm and serious. He walked past them to the car. The legal woman looked nervous. She didn't know whether to talk, follow, or run. Keanu paused at the door and looked back once. "This was never about me," he said. "It's about what you let happen." Then he got in the car. No news crew. No yelling. Just the system finally listening to itself. Edmund looked at the legal person. "Start the investigation. Get everything. Every complaint. Every time someone didn't speak up. We will fix this." In the car, Keanu sat quietly. The city of Geneva slowly woke up around him. His watch buzzed again. Becky suspended. "Full review tomorrow." "We're just getting started." Keanu didn't answer. He looked out the window. The buildings passed by. No one would remember what he wore. But they would remember what he changed. 3 days later, another Stratus flight took off. The same fancy lights. The same soft music. But something was new. Seat 1A had a silver plaque. Small and shiny. It said, "Reserved for quiet power." Below that, We remember you. No big announcement. No media. Just the plaque. Keanu walked on last. Same coat. Same bag. Same calm way of walking. A new flight attendant stood ready. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Reeves," she said kindly. He nodded and sat down. His name was on the screen already. His warm vegan meal was waiting. A note sat on his tray. "Thank you for reminding us. Silence is not invisibility." He smiled slightly and put the note in his coat. The plane lifted into the sky. But something had changed. Not just in first class. Not just in straightest air. But in the whole world. Keanu never told the news. He never posted about it. But others started to share stories. A young girl was finally called by her name. A traveler in a wheelchair didn't have to ask twice. A teacher sat in seat 1A and cried, not because she was sad, but because she was seen. And slowly, things began to change. Not loudly, but for real. Because power doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it just sits quietly and makes sure the world can't look away. And now, every time someone sits in 1A, they might be the next person who helps change everything. If this story touched your heart, write, "I've been in that seat." Or next time I'll speak up. Let the world know, respect isn't just for the rich. It's for everyone. And one seat, one calm person, one quiet truth, can change the whole sky. If you like this story, tell me in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more fun adventures and mysteries. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.